Alright, whose Nuzlocke am I tearing to shreds today? The answer is actually nobody's. This footage was actually of an AI attempting to play through an Emerald Kaizo hardcore Nuzlocke. It's a project created by KP Labs, a Pokemon enthusiast who was getting interested in AI and decided to take this on as his first AI-related project. Obviously, this thing isn't quite ready to take my job yet, but in this run it won 12 trainer battles, and that's something. The trainer battles in Emerald Kaizo, one of the hardest ROM hacks out there, are designed to give you trouble from the very start. Even some of the best runners in the world have lost runs before the fight against Red that took out the AI here. So what actually is this AI and how does it work? Currently, the AI is just a battle simulator. Team building is a whole other can of worms. For now, random encounters for each attempt are simulated automatically by the software, and save states are loaded before each mandatory battle of the ROM hack. Once in the battle, that's where the AI actually goes to work. Eventually, KP Labs wants to integrate more advanced team building, and there's a world where overworld movement can eventually be incorporated as well. In late 2023, Peter Whitten showed off an AI that was capable of playing Pokemon Red up through the Mount Moon cave, but not before it spent a lot of time bumping into walls and walking around in circles. For now, because Nuzlocke rules add so much complexity, and because even the easier battles in Emerald Kaizo are leagues of difficulty harder than Pokemon Red's, KP Labs is trying to keep the focus of the AI on battling for now. AI can mean a lot of different things, and this is not the kind that's been screwing up your Google search results recently. So let's be a little bit more specific about what KP Labs is actually doing here. AIs have been playing games for a long time now. IBM's chess-playing AI Deep Blue became a global sensation after it won a match against the world champion Garry Kasparov in 1997. Deep Blue didn't really learn though, and it didn't make up new and brilliant moves. It's more that it had a really big memory and incredible processor speed, allowing it to take databases full of games and positions and look through them fast enough to pull up the best known move for any given situation. Experts call this a table lookup approach. That approach to the problem isn't going to work for a Nuzlocke for one huge reason: randomness. Any given Pokemon turn is already loaded with possible choices that can create branching paths. The player can pick one of 4 moves or switch to any of its 5 teammates. But within those 4 moves are accuracy checks, critical hit checks, damage rolls, status checks, item checks. It gets pretty crazy, and that's before even acknowledging individual Pokemon variations like IVs and abilities. The third build, a computer scientist who tackled this problem with competitive Pokemon battles in 2022, did the calculation. Turn 1 alone is more complicated than a full game of chess by itself, which is still not as complicated as finding the right streaming service in your country for that one show you've been trying to watch. Luckily, the sponsor of this video, NordVPN, has got you covered for that. Nord lets you switch between hundreds of servers in dozens of countries and unlock the full library of any streaming service by overcoming geo-locking. It's also been really helpful for me personally in booking flights, hotels, and rental cars, because prices of these things are often dynamically calculated based on your location. Switching my location with NordVPN has allowed me to save real actual money on trips that way. It also means that I won't have to worry about network admins on public Wi-Fi networks seeing what websites I'm visiting when I'm on the go. Nord has a 30-day money-back guarantee and 24/7 customer support, so there's no reason not to try it right now. Thanks to Nord for sponsoring this video. Pokemon is not the first game to present this problem to AI developers. Compared to both Pokemon and chess, Backgammon is a simple game, but applying the table lookup approach that took down Kasparov didn't really work for Backgammon. Gerald Tesoro built 2 of the best early Backgammon playing AIs in the 1980s and 90s, NeuroGammon and TD Gammon. NeuroGammon was an award-winning program, but peaked at a level that Tesoro himself described as intermediate. He wrote in 1995, "Programming a computer to play high-level backgammon has been found to be a rather difficult undertaking. In certain simplified endgame situations, it is possible to design a program that plays perfectly via table lookup. However, such an approach is not feasible for the full game due to the enormous number of possible states, estimated over 10 to the power of 20. Furthermore, the brute force methodology of deep searches, which has worked so well in games such as chess, checkers, and Othello, is not feasible due to the high branching ratio resulting from the probabilistic dice rolls. See, AI that uses the table lookup method have a dirty little secret. They're incapable of creativity. If there's no table to look up, they're useless. Tesoro instead went with a different approach, the same approach KP Labs is using to try and beat Emerald Kaizo: reinforcement learning. Reinforcement learning models start from absolute zero. Rather than using something like a database that calculates an optimal play, these models learn from experience. For Pokemon, that looks like giving the AI its possible choices, moves and switches, as actions it can take. The AI's behavior is then positively or negatively reinforced based on the reward structure given to it by the programmer. After every action it takes, it updates itself based on the reward it received. This means that if you look at the AI play, early on in the training process, it's going to look really, really stupid. Before the AI has received enough rewards to influence its decision making, all it can do is make its choices at random. And since most Pokemon don't have full movesets early on in the game, chances are that random selection lands on a switch, leading to runs where it just keeps switching until everything dies. But eventually it'll start learning. After getting positive rewards for stuff like taking KOs and winning battles, and negative rewards for losing Pokemon, it'll eventually figure out such radical concepts as doing damage is important, and letting your Pokemon get hit too much is bad, and maybe eventually they'll even play around the crit. Tweaking the reward function has been one of the big challenges for KP Labs.
It will end up learning to play for the rewards that you set, sort of inevitably, so you do need to be careful. There was an early version of this from a few months ago where I was messing around with it, and what it would do is it would stall the battle like as much as possible in order to keep earning points. Like when it knew it had a one-shot kill, but it would just keep switching, using a move, chipping some damage, keep switching. It's a science to it.
When something like that happens, or if it seemed like the AI was hitting a wall and KP Labs wanted to give it more context, it would have to be reset, lose everything it had learned, and start all over again from spamming random moves and switches. But that's all part of the process.
I was keeping an eye on the graphs, and it looked like it was stagnating. Whether or not that was just due inherently to the conclusions that it had formed, I'm not sure. Most of machine learning like this is throwing shit at the wall until something sticks.
Watching its current PB, you can see that a few things have stuck. Against the bug types in the early game, the AI will reliably switch in the flying type Farfetch'd and more often the fire type Slugma. Once they had the sweep, the AI was usually happy to leave them in and just keep clicking the super effective damaging move until the opponent died. But it still makes its share of mistakes. The biggest in the PB was letting the starter Mudkip die to Sentret's quick attack in the very first fight. Right now, the AI doesn't have info like the opponent's moveset, although that's certainly something that can be added as an input as the system is improved. But even with that information, the AI still would need to experience the mistake and receive the negative reward probably many times over before it can update itself and adapt. It also doesn't necessarily know why things are happening. Against the Magma Grunt that nearly ended this run, we see some fascinating behavior from the AI with the paralyzed Slugma facing off against the Coughing. The Coughing is in the red and will die to another Flame Wheel. The AI goes for it, but it gets fully paralyzed. It tries to click Rock Throw, but a full paralysis happens again. Then it switches out to the utterly useless Poochyena, which just mashes Sand Attack. Instead of recognizing the odds were in its favor, it just kept attacking, it panicked, and switched. Okay, we're anthropomorphizing the computer a little bit here, but can you see the similarities to how new players approach Pokemon? Unlike the AI in its newborn state, humans usually have enough of an understanding of how video games work coming into it that their default behavior is spamming attacks instead of switches. But we've all seen or been the player who reaches a fight where just mashing attacks won't work, and they panic, frantically trying other options until one works, or more likely they die. Right now, even at its best, the AI is still more or less in that stage. How much better can it really become? A funny thing happened with the early Backgammon AI attempts. AIs that tried to mimic the way humans evaluated board states always seem to come up short against human opponents. Because the game has so many possibilities, players have to come up with heuristics, rules that are loosely defined enough that they can be adapted to the various RNG situations the game can present. Computers famously are not great with loosely defined, and then there was the problem with the fact that commonly accepted optimal strategies were constantly being proven wrong. Tesaro concluded, in view of this, programmers are not exactly on firm grounds in accepting current expert opinions at face value. Very diplomatic. It seems like this was what excited him the most about reinforcement learning. The model it produced wouldn't be tainted by the biases and errors of the humans other models had attempted to mimic. His next model, TD-Gammon, would train itself from nothing by playing games against itself and adjusting to a reward function. Like KP Labs' Pokemon trainer, TD-Gammon essentially played randomly at first, but after thousands of games, Tesaro reported seeing basic plays like hitting the opponent and playing safe, and more sophisticated strategies started emerging after tens of thousands of games. How good did it get? At the time, the best commercial backgammon programs would lose to master-level human players by about 2/3 of a point per game. In 1991, TD-Gammon 1.0 was tested in 51 games against a trio of masters, losing by 13 combined points over 51 games, just 0.25 points per game. A year later, with another 1.5 million training games under its belt, it got another chance, taking on one of those masters in a 40-game series. The master, Bill Roberty, won by exactly 1 point, as close to dead even as you can get. What was so remarkable wasn't that a computer was playing a game at an equivalent level to the world's best, but how it was doing it. Tesaro wrote that Roberty thinks that at least in a few cases the program has come up with a genuinely novel strategy that actually improves on the way top humans usually play. Another top backgammon player and analyst, Kit Woosley, went even further. Instead of a dumb machine which can calculate things much faster than humans, such as the chess playing computers, you've built a smart machine which learns from experience pretty much the same way humans do. TD Gammon actually had an immediate effect on tournament backgammon games thanks to an article Robert wrote in Backgammon magazine about his experience playing against it. He included an analysis where the AI suggested moving the back checkers in certain situations as opposed to the front ones. Soon, the decades-old traditional play of moving the front checkers had all but disappeared from tournament play, replaced by the play favored by TD Gammon. This, to me, is the most exciting part of the KP Labs project. The idea of a program that can beat a Nuzlocke is one thing. The idea of a program that can learn how to beat a Nuzlocke is another thing entirely. One that has so many possibilities to teach us more about this hobby, which I've devoted so much of my life to. I take pride in my ability with this game, the way I can combine my knowledge with intuition to come up with some of the most insane cooks you'll ever see. I think I can find lines that nobody else can. But like anybody, I have my biases and my blind spots, and unlike a computer, I can only take on so many runs. My 150 attempts at Emerald Kaizo took me months and months. The KP Labs AI could do 150 attempts in a matter of days. Even if the AI doesn't uncover new or better strategies like TD Gammon did, the fact that it plays through the game so fast could open up possibilities for Nuzlocke experiments that we rarely get to see. Unless you're playing Crystal Kaizo Plus, which has Emmy's fantastic calculator and all the data that comes with it, most Nuzlocke players don't have substantial answers to questions like which encounter is actually best on this route. For a game like Emerald Kaizo or Run and Bun, we have pretty good ideas based on how people have won in the past, but gathering the sample sizes to scientifically test them is pretty much impossible. An AI that could play the game at a high level could give us some real data to help us answer these questions. One of the coolest aspects of these kinds of learning models is that you can actually see them adapting in real time. There was one particular proud moment where the AI learned about how sleep worked. The first time it hit sing, it immediately clicked sing again because it was rewarded for hitting sing the first time, but eventually it learned to stop clicking status moves multiple times in a row. Seeing the AI learn how to play around the sleep mechanic was one of the moments that really showed the potential of this project. It's a small step, but imagine what could happen with more training and more refinement for the rewards function. The model has come from nothing and learned how to win Pokemon battles. It's beaten more trainers in Emerald Kaizo than some human players. There's still a long time before it's competing for the title of best Nuzlocker in the world or anything, but I think there are some pretty sick possibilities that could emerge from KP Labs' project, and I can't wait to see where it goes from here.